There you go.
All right, all right. Good evening, afternoon. Josh, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's a pleasure to meet you. And then on top of that, just yeah, I just wanted to start the meeting really quickly by just saying you've done a lot for the community and myself. And I just wanted to quickly remind you that what you're posting, what you're sharing, it's helping a lot. I mean, I've gone and paid for a lot of different forms of programs and such, and nothing has helped me the way you have helped me. And so thank you ahead of time. But yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. That means a lot. It really does.
awesome, awesome. So Josh, I wanted to really quickly, take advantage of 1 hour of your time to discuss what I want to achieve here. I'm coming in performing my first professional cold email lead generation campaign. I've done this, but with a completely different approach. And then obviously what you're introducing here with the rest of the community is very unique, highly targeted campaigns, leveraging all of these different things that make sense to me. But when I approach this gentleman, he's the sales and marketing director at Fulcrum Search Science. They are a firm that does executive search. When I explain these things to him, maybe I didn't explain it correctly, but he didn't really have the confidence with what I was trying to provide. But he's giving me an opportunity just because of how I communicate, and maybe there are some other aspects to it, but yeah, he's given me a shot. And yeah, I wanted to very quickly, I know I've written a description of what I'd like to achieve today, but Josh, I think I would do you a service as much as myself by sharing with you just kind of a quick glimpse into what we discussed today, because today Adrian communicated to me, the specific companies that he targets, all of these different criteria that I know are going to be paying dividends when we start a campaign. So if I could just bother you through the text format of this chat, an email that I can send this quick summarization of, this hour and a half meeting we had just before this. Yeah, I think that would help both sides tremendously, and then we can just kind of build from there. How does that sound?
Yeah, go for it.
Wonderful. So could I just bother you for in the chat the email you'd like me to forward this to?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
Let's see.
And then I will forward this. Thank you. So I'm just going to move this over here. Oh, and also, do you mind if just so that I could go back to this video, do you mind if I record this video by any chance?
No, go for it.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm just going to click start recording, and then I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to forward you this breakdown here. There we go. Okay. So I have now forwarded you the email. So whenever you have a moment, just please confirm that you received it, and yeah, we can go from there.
Yeah, I'm waiting on it.
Sounds good.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I'm reading the notes here.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm good.
Wonderful, Josh. Alrighty. So with that being said, now that you've taken a look at the notes here, I guess the main goal of today is really, just to explore ways in which you could help me familiarize myself with some tools or perhaps some workflows or something, that I could utilize within the campaigns to really maximize my chances of helping Adrian create more meetings. I know that based off the conversation I had with him, he's been reaching out to private equity firms who purchase these companies and are looking to hire these specific personnel. And for me, Josh, this is completely unknown territory. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like I'd say first of all, some of the things are, I'd say best classification of, the roles part is straightforward, right?
Mhm.
Identifying the postings and the jobs is pretty straightforward. I think there's no really easy way to tell if a company has a recruiter other than just specifically like in LinkedIn, you can flag that to some extent. You can so when you pull jobs, a lot of jobs are posted by recruiting firms.
Okay.
And so you can kind of reverse engineer that, and I can show you some tables where we do that to exclude um, recruiting companies so that
Okay.
you narrow down those roles. Um, Reposted job listings, I think is a good point as far as is it. The hard part is it's not necessarily easy to capture per se if it's a reposted job role
Hmm.
because oftentimes you want to exclude it from a duplicate perspective so you don't end up reaching out to the same person twice for the same role.
Hmm.
But like, I guess the first question I would ask you is like, what is your lead generation budget, right? Because a lot of this data you can get to one way or other ways, right? But some of that costs money, some of it doesn't.
Thank you for asking that, Josh. So right now, I think in terms of the actual cost or budget that I would be working with would be at the most 1000 USD.
Okay.
And yeah.
Is that inclusive of like doing and sending email and everything?
Yeah, so it's actually not including what I already pay for. So Instantly is the main email platform I use, and I have the second biggest plan, the hyper growth one for email accounts. I have 27 domains, each with three email sending accounts, so 81 in total. And then ultimately I have access to Clay. You help me a lot directly going with Clay as opposed to some reseller. And then outside of that, Josh, I'm very familiar with Apify, but that's not included in what I already pay for. So Instantly, Clay, and yeah, that's pretty much what I have going on right now.
And did you go with the 350 plan on Clay?
With the 349, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, that helps. No, it just because it limits how you design per se your workflow. So
Okay.
let me share some screens here that we can kind of talk about this,
Okay.
right? So I'm gonna turn my camera off because my computer's acting up today and it's
Don't worry about
slow
it.
when I share, but
Don't worry
otherwise
about
you
it.
will see the screen. All right, can you see
Exactly.
Clay?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about, and I'm going to share some recent information. I have not tested this, but I've been told that this is actually a better way to do it.
Okay.
So I use Indeed a lot. Like you can tell right here that I mean, you just look at the actors I've been running. I mean, I've almost been running it almost all weekend for different searches,
Awesome. Okay.
right? So one thing about Indeed is that it's pretty affordable. I mean, to some extent, right? So it really depends on how big the search you ran is. So you can get an idea from my runs, like to pull down 10,000 results, you're going to spend about $50, right?
Mhm.
And then it's essentially $5 per thousand results. So what I would be doing at the same time, since you know what your budget is be creating a spreadsheet, Diego, that has like, okay, so I think we got to start off like before we get into this is let's think about what your sending capacity is, right? So you said you had how many domains, how many email accounts?
So I have 81 email accounts, and I've cross-referenced those with Heatrix tools. They're all healthy. Um,
Good.
None of them are within spam. Yeah.
So what do you think is your best approach? Do you want to do it? I'm sure you're familiar with Reachly by now.
Yes,
So
I
like
am.
this is where you start with the math, right? If we're going to send email
Okay.
out, no video on the first email, right? Then it's just we need to do the math one way. If you think that, you know, you want to put videos in people's inboxes, then the math will come out another way. But I think I always start with how much can I send on a given month because then I know how many leads I need, if that makes sense.
Wonderful, Josh. Thank you. So, um, I think I'm open to risk because again, this is the first professional cold email campaign I'm doing up, and I'm doing it for a very, in my opinion at least, it's a very unique type of service deliverer or provider. They're looking for executive roles to kind of help fill for medium-sized businesses. And
Mhm.
so I think I want to maximize my chances of ensuring I get them meetings because at the end of the day, Adrian, that's all he's expecting from me, right?
Yeah, it's meetings. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, ultimately, after watching, everything that you've done within this community and what you do for your own business, it appears to me that sending the video is the better way to go about it. And if it costs more, I will absorb that, but I think that's the way to go about it. What are your thoughts?
I agree wholeheartedly. But
Okay.
um, yeah, no doubt. I mean, I would tell you that even if you're kind of bad at it, you probably with good lead targeting you're going to get one meeting per 500 emails sent.
Okay.
As long as you do good lead targeting and put together professional page and Reachly. I
Okay.
mean, I think I'm sending 800 a day now by video, and I booked like 6 calls today. So, I mean, now I'm being very targeted, right, in my lead gen, and but I'm gonna talk you through it all, right? So, yeah, so let's do the math from there. I would say conservatively, you should send no more than 10 a day.
Okay.
You said you had 81 domains, is that right? Or 81
Correct.
email accounts?
81 email accounts, correct. And
Yeah.
all of which have been warmed up for like close to a year. Yeah.
Okay, then they're going to perform great because that's a key to the video. It's like it seems like doing extremely well on accounts that are more than 3 or 4 months, right?
Wonderful.
Um, so I would say 8-10 is your sending capacity a day.
Okay.
I see no reason to not send on weekends. I know that's counterintuitive to what most people will tell you, but
Yeah.
I get my most visibility on weekends because for these types of roles, these type of people that work in these types of roles,
Mhm.
they're they're checking their phones on their weekend, right?
Okay.
So that's why.
Thank you.
So I would say 8-10 times 30 just to be safe.
Okay.
So whatever that number is, I think it's 24,000, give or take, is my math.
Okay.
That's our sending capacity.
Hmm.
Now we want to break that down into 3 leads, 3 sends per lead. So really, we're going to need 8,000 leads.
Okay.
You follow me there so far?
I am following you. Yep.
Okay. So that gives us where we're going to start, right? So you can see like it's not really hard to pull 8,000 leads. Like I pulled 9,915 on one list yesterday, right?
You're a monster.
But well, and this is all for the same client, who by the way is doing recruiting, right?
Okay.
Um, so I know this really well only because his niche is extremely difficult, right? It's like I got to start here and then break it down and break it down and break it down, right? And I'm going to show you that because to some extent that's exactly what we need to do for you.
Okay.
But I would say so if we know we need 8,000 leads, it's really going to take about 16,000 pulls to get 8,000 leads.
Okay.
And the reason why is because you're not going to be able to find the email for about half of them,
Thank
right?
you.
And so that's it does no good if you know that it. So here's the thing that's difficult with recruiting. You
Okay.
start with a job, but you don't know who posted the job, right? So you got to
Yeah.
try to find the best person to reach out to.
Hmm.
And then the second thing you have to do is find an email for that person, right? After that, you pretty much can hit anybody that's left, right? But the challenge is that you're losing people in both steps, right?
Hmm.
You're going to have a job, but you're not always going to find a good person to reach out to. And
Hmm.
then you're going to find a good person to reach out to, but not always have an email, right? So, and to varying degrees, you could pay more to do both, right? I make the decision that like it's going to go through the flows I have that are moderately affordable and not like And the best example I can give you is like I run one GPT prompt to find the owner. I could
Okay.
obviously go out to Apollo or Zoom Info and try harder, but it's just not worth it, right? Like I would rather just go out and I'd rather pull in this case 9,915 leads to only find about half of them than pay more to get more emails and more contacts from this matter. It just gets really expensive because like we used to, I use ICPs and lead magic to find emails,
Yeah.
but it's just a diminishing degree of return on what you have to spend to find more emails, right? And
Mhm.
it's kind of the same thing with find more owners. So at the end of the day, it's much cheaper just to come back to Apify, spend another, 25 or $50 and get 10,000 more jobs, especially in the niche in the particular parameters by which you're searching for, because there's going to be, I don't know how many, but there, like we could figure out pretty quickly, there's going to be a lot of executive jobs that fit in that niche, but then we have to drill it down, right, to no recruiter, things like that, right? So that's the general premise, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Mhm. Understood.
But you start big, and then at the end of the day, we know we need to end up with 8,000, right?
Okay.
So, a couple of things about Apify. I'll show you. And the thing I did not know, and I have not tried this, so I'm going to encourage you to do it.
Okay.
Is that there's a Google Jobs
Oh,
scraper in here?
I'm familiar with that, my good sir. Yeah. So I actually, and I, sorry for interrupting. I just want to interject very quickly. With this very same job scraper that you're showing to me, I didn't demo this capability, but I know I have a workflow that I was able to copy from, I think it was like Automate RevOps, these gentlemen on LinkedIn that created this. And it aggregates the jobs from all of these different job postings.
Cool.
And then through a workflow that they incorporated, they were able to find or inject, different filters and variables to find their ICP or their like ideal client profile and whoever they wanted to target. So I am familiar with that is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've been using Indeed ridiculously. I was told by somebody I trust I should be using Google Jobs because it pulls in and aggregates a bunch of jobs
Yeah,
versus just Indeed. So just like that's all I was going to show you. Just because
thank you.
I use Indeed primarily and LinkedIn obviously, but
Mhm.
um good. So and you're comfortable with moving everything from Apify to Clay?
Yes, my good sir. Yep.
Good. Okay. So let's dive a little deeper then.
Hmm.
So I'll use one of my clients as an example. So
Sure.
the next thing we want to do, it's a big table, is how do we drill down, right? Like I was talking about. So you can see here we're importing the Apify record,
Hmm.
right? And you have a lot to work with here. Obviously, a lot about the job description, but again, you run into kind of the same issue where you don't necessarily have you don't have a job title. I mean, excuse me, you have a job posting title, but you don't have the person who posted it,
Right.
and you don't have um, the email. So this is one for healthcare, and I'll kind of walk you through the whole table, right? So we
Sure.
come in with the URL from Apify. Now they don't all have URLs, right? So immediately I exclude those, right? Again, you could make the choice to go out and try to find the URL, but I
Hmm.
just don't. It like I'm high volume repeat versus like spending more money to find things like to some degree is not worth it, right? Where I can just move on to the next one. I do have these tables set up to auto dedupe.
Okay.
So one of the things you could do that I'm not doing, but it speaks to what was in that note with Adrian, which
Okay.
was not auto dedupe the table.
Okay.
So don't be okay that it's posted twice,
Hmm.
and then definitely flag those as. See, the thing is, I wouldn't do anything different if it was posted twice,
Okay.
but to the point of that you could do something different, meaning that in theory, you could just pull a whole bunch of jobs in the executive realm and
Hmm.
see if you can get enough that are posted twice. That's actually a kind of a good indicator. I just don't know if you're going to find enough, right? That's a lot of work to see if you can get to that point. I don't
Okay.
give myself the opportunity to recognize that because I just auto dedupe the table. So if it's, I don't even send to the same company twice,
Okay.
right? So, but that's all personal choice. So that's some of the things I would look at if I were you. Is like, okay, don't auto dedupe or don't deduplicate the table. See if I get a lot of duplicate jobs, and then focus on those first. Because
Hmm.
clearly, I mean, I think it's a good point. Like if it's been reposted, and you should be able to in Apify as well. Look at, let's see, the posted date. I would be surprised if you couldn't.
Posting date
Mm,
period only.
yeah, so posting date parsed here, right? So this
Hmm.
one was posted. Yeah, so you could also do a custom formula and say, like, was this posted within like longer than 30 days ago? It's a good indication, maybe 60 days if they're struggling. Now, executive roles are a little bit tricky, right? Because they're definitely not like filling a nursing role, right? Like they have a slower turnaround time to some extent because they're in executive roles, but just keep in mind, like it's highly likely if they had really a strong candidate that the company would pull the posting, right? So it's a good indication if it's on there. My opinion, I would probably say about 30 days or longer. So that's something you could do too, where you could just write a custom formula to this column and
Okay.
say if longer than 60 days, if longer than 30 days, right? So it's an option of like you start with this big pool of jobs and then how far you want to drill it down, right?
Okay.
Obviously, the better you do that, then you're going to hit a more targeted audience. You're going to get better replies, better opportunities, right?
Hmm.
But that being said, you have to balance that with volume, right? So if you know you got to get to 8,000, you're doing all your drilling down and you're only hitting like 700 jobs, then you're probably getting too tight in your parameters. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, I always like to normalize the domain, clean it up, then we pull out the company name, the role, and then the first thing I would do is find the person, right? So I'll share this table with you after our call, so you have a version of it.
Yeah.
And I'll just take like some of the client specific information out. But
Hmm.
um, this is the prompt. The reason why I was using Cohere to do this, but the cost to do this now is like 3/100ths of a cent.
Hmm.
So it's pretty cost effective. I would tell you like you're gonna wanna like do you have your own I assume you have your own OpenAI API key?
I do, but I'm not yet at tier 4 or 5 or whatever necessary tier you need to integrate it within Clay. There is a limitation on mine. So I have to spend Clay credits, but I mean, I have 13,000 Clay credits to leverage at this point. So,
Okay, you'll be fine then.
okay.
I mean, the good thing is you can use Mini,
Hmm.
and that's only one Clay credit, so it's not like the other. Like if you were trying to use like Neon, it's two, or GPT-4o, it's three. So Mini's one. I mean, what you could do is just run them slower.
Right.
And then the other thing I'll tell you that's a little trick is that if you like, do you notice on this table when I first get it, I normalize the domain?
Hmm.
So it takes a while to normalize all these domains, right? So
Yeah.
you can strap these together where you can turn them to run automatically,
Okay.
and you give it a only run if variable. So only run if something is true, like only run if this normalized URL box is not empty, is something you could put in there. And so
Okay.
when it populates, it'll run,
Hmm.
right? So why that's important is because it takes a while to run all those normalizations, right? For the normalized URL, it takes 30 minutes, give or take, to do 5,000. Might take 20 minutes. But each time one completes, it'll kick off the research. versus
Mhm.
trying to do it all at the same time, which is where you run into your rate limits. That makes sense.
That
So
does.
you may still rate limit, but you'll have a lot less to worry about, and you can filter those out pretty quickly by, I use this all the time, but I always filter on this column. And then I say has an error, has not run, or has no results. I use those variables to find the ones that have errored out real quickly. But if you strap them or, have them only run when something else is complete, that spaces out the rate limit issues a lot. And like somebody was posting today, like unfortunately with ClayGent and GPT-4, like you can't run it through OpenRouter because you don't get the ClayGent functionality. But
Mm.
the alternative is really just to like have it run slower. It's just worth the validity of what you're getting out of this is so worth the hassle of running into rate limits. It just is because even at one credit, I mean, it's highly likely that you're not going to burn through the third. You might burn through the 13,000 just finding the owner,
Right.
right? So I would try really hard to even do it at a smaller scale to
Mhm.
use the GPT because of the cost alone. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like a normal Clay credit on that 350 plan is like 3.5 cents, and in this case, you're paying 1/10 of that to use your API key. That makes sense. I asked that
Yes.
a lot, but I mean, so I'll share this with you, but and I'll have the prompt in it. But all this is doing is just taking these different parameters and going in and looking to try to identify who the person is that likely posted the role and or who is the most important person at the company to reach out about recruiting efforts.
Okay.
And you can adjust this, these titles if you want, but
Hmm.
it's very effective in finding roles. And if like you just look at this first one, so Nancy Hill Davis is Senior Vice President, Chief Talent Officer at Mercy Medical Center, which suggests a key role in the hiring process. And then if you were to go like in depth of the steps taken, it's really detailed of what it does to go about and find her. Like it went through all these Zoom info profiles, like it researched all this website, like it does all of this to find the right person.
Hmm.
And, you know, that's key, right? Because once you find the person, and the other thing I really like about ClayGen is you can look at confidence levels. So
Yeah.
I use the confidence levels. You can see the cost. Some of them goes up to four tenths of a cent, but most of the time it's between 2-3 cents. It's
Hmm.
very clean output. So you get the contact information, and
Hmm.
then I move it straight into ICPs first because ICPs is definitely the most cost effective to find emails.
Hmm.
And then recently, in the last week or two, I've strapped on Lead Magic to find as a second search. So if I don't find it here, like you can see here, then I go and run it through Lead Magic.
Hmm.
And this is a formula. It looks a little complicated, but just basically says review both emails, output whatever column is not empty. Do not use the output of email two if the status is not valid. So in other words, if if Lead Magic comes back with a catch-all,
Then
then it
don't.
won't use it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So it's just a little formulas there. But when you get this table, Diego, you'll see that it's all already set up. So like I already programmed it to not run the second one
Okay.
unless the first one doesn't have an email, right? So it only runs. I use obviously is empty a lot. You saw that in the other one, but it's set up to not spend money when it doesn't need to spend money. That makes sense.
It does make perfect sense.
But it requires a lot of API keys, right? Because I've already shown you OpenAI. This is uh, this is the
ICP.
API for ICPs, and this is the one for Lead Magic, right?
Yeah.
But all in all, right? If you were to, I'll show you the copy in a minute, but it's all about getting to um, the end, right? And I would say if I did the math in my head, this whole run here costs probably like, let's see what this is ridiculously cheap.
Wow. It's like
Well, and
So
you'll see why we do that in a minute. Yeah, it's super,
yeah.
super cheap.
Sweet.
Um, but then, so you get an email, like, and I
Yes.
want to be respectful of your time. You get an email here, then you have to, then I do research on the business, right? So again, highly detailed research on the business, only set to run as long as if we get an email. And
Hmm.
this one comes in at like 5/10 of a cent, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, you get, sorry, just a second.
Do your thing, do your thing. But that is really impressive.
Well, and it's all about what's your return on investment, right? Because I'm going to use this research only when I found an email, right? So I'm only going to spend money when I find an email. And then from there, that is going to be the basis of what our offer is and what we put on the landing page on Reachly, right?
Hmm.
But that's why, I don't mind spending that money because it's so detailed and so accurate. And then I've gotten this prompt now where it's pretty ridiculous. Like I tell it to look at their URL. If in this case, I have the LinkedIn profiles, the contact name, the company name, give me 3 to 4 highly detailed paragraphs, look for relevant news information, etc. Leverage LinkedIn, Google, any other pertinent sources. So it does all of that, right?
Hmm.
And then, I'll just show you another one. Like it does all of that and gives me person research and business research, right? And if you were to look at again the steps taken, so it went to their website, got all this information. It went to something about doing a Google search about them, got all this information. Visited their company LinkedIn page, got more information, found the profile of the CEO, et cetera, et cetera. Went to his personal profile. Like it's then going further on another page that talks about him as a leader. It's doing like all of this for like half a cent, right? Like this is like 30 minutes of work just for one lead, right? So GPT-4 Omni, like I've talked about last week or two, like Mini combined with Claygen, it's to me it's been entirely game changing. Like I can even see it in my replies now, how specific people are, how they're just impressed with the quality of the replies.
Yeah.
And we're going to take that then, right, and inject it into not just copy, but a landing page, right, which is what makes it work. And that's the whole system, right, which gives you the value. So, what you were told about, I'd be surprised if we can get one meeting in 6 months. Like it's the same thing I hear all the time. I just signed
Oh.
a client that has 45,000 organic website traffic a day.
Mhm.
They're sending 3.2 million emails a month,
Wow.
and
Wow.
yeah, but they had the same mentality. They're like, "There's no way you can change this, etc." But obviously, they think I can because they became a client. But it can't. It came down to number one, their copy sucks, but the number two thing they're doing is they're sending like 100 emails a day on the same accounts and have some like domains with like 30 email accounts. So
Oh
it's
wow.
not what they were. Yeah, it's not necessarily that they're not doing all this. It's just they screwed up the fundamentals, right? Like they're sending 4 times the amount of email they should. They just had like 500 of their Microsoft accounts blocked. So it's
Wow.
amazing and this is a big company that is very, very reputable and has a lot of money, but they didn't take the time to learn how to do things properly, right? So, it's not going to be hard for me to get them results without even doing it, right? So that's kind of the point, right? It's like the perspective you were given comes from a perspective of probably people that aren't going to do what you're going to do. Like even if you by setting up the right amount of domains and sending the emails conservatively, introducing video is going to be strategically an advantage to you from a recruiting perspective because other than the recruiting clients I have, nobody else is doing it. Right. So that's because they don't know how or thought it was foolish. So
Mhm.
I'll tell you something real quick. I just emailed this morning in my video campaign my partnership manager at Instantly.
Okay.
So it was funny. I didn't mean to. It was like a total accident, right? But she followed the company that I was targeting, so it was hilarious because she just sent me a note back. She's like, "That's pretty awesome. You can even email instantly themselves with video." And I was like, "Yeah, I can." But people notice and they'll watch the video. I promise. And they'll some of those people will book because they're curious and they want to learn more and they admire the creativity, right? So I'm not worried to that point. But I would tell you like the research is critical. Um, and then I'll take this offer out for this particular company, but you just basically come in here to the offer and
Hmm.
you kind of write a couple sentences about your company, right? And
Right.
about what you're promoting. It has the job title injected in there on purpose so that when the copy comes out, it speaks to that title,
Okay.
right? And then you can do, I ran it this time, the staffing company prompt this way because I thought it would just be better
Hmm.
and it's cheaper than trying to pull it in through LinkedIn. So it does add like another 1/10 of a cent. So if you think
Okay.
about where we're at right now, we're probably at about a penny so far.
Hmm.
And so when I look at this one, it may end up being like a penny and a half when it's all said and done. Um, Actually, it's probably like 1.1 because um, so here's the other thing. Like I did, and this is a personal choice, but I did pull in all of their company LinkedIn profiles because
Okay.
it helped me write better copy. Like I had their for the research, I had their LinkedIn URL,
Hmm.
and I wanted to filter by company size.
Hmm.
And this is something that was spoken to in that email, right? I will tell you, I've seen enough of these now. Anything above 5,000 employees, they're probably going to have their own recruiters, right? And
Yes.
I have my client is a professional recruiter
Okay.
and he set all these parameters. So I
Hmm.
trust him. Like he won't let me run any searches above 5,000 employees, even though that's more money for him. He's like, look, Josh, they all have recruiters. Like there's just no point. It's a waste of an email. So
Hmm.
it may be worth it to not, if you're going to use your one credit, to use it on enhanced LinkedIn profile. Right now, if you want to try, what you could do is actually come back and just duplicate like the staffing one. So the staffing one, all it does is it just goes in there and doubles checks and make sure, just look at their website, determine if they're a staffing or recruiting company. I'll put yes or no. Right.
Hmm.
So that's how I exclude those. You could just duplicate this and say, go to, try to identify this company's LinkedIn profile and determine their employee size.
Okay.
And you may get enough results where it's not in it. I look at everything from what is the result I get versus the cost it would be to spend a click credit, right?
Hmm.
So if I can spend a click credit, I know on your plan that's 3.5 cents per lead every click credit, right?
Hmm.
So because you get 10,000, right? That's how you do the math, right? You get 10,000 credits. So you probably have 3,000 because you got the extra 3,000, I would assume, right? So how you
Yes.
got to your 13. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to take that to factor,
Hmm.
factor that in. But I often will try to use GPT like this, especially now with GPT Mini, and say, okay, can I get this answer that costs me a clay credit, which in this case is employee size
Hmm.
for, you know, 0.2 to 0.3 of cent versus spending a clay credit, which is going to cost me 3.5 cents. That makes sense.
That makes perfect
That's
sense.
I always do that calculation in my head. Sometimes the answer is no. Like when I want to use built with, for example,
Hmm.
there's no way to get the built with data other than going to built with directly and calling their API or using a clay credit.
Okay.
And um, that's it. Like I can't use GPT for that. So that's where it's like somewhat non-negotiable. But
Hmm.
it's definitely, and probably emails is probably the only other thing. Like I don't think ClayGent's good enough. Some people are saying it might be. I haven't really tried it, but I don't know if ClayGent would be my source to go find a validated email. I would go directly to ICPs or Lead Magic, right? Or if I wanted convenience, I could pay the Clay credits to do both too. But it's definitely cheaper almost in every case. I've never seen where it's not cheaper to
Hmm.
call the API. I think it's just a matter of convenience too, right? Because if it's not built into ClayGent or not built into Clay itself, then you
Hmm.
have to write the API call yourself. So that doesn't exist in any of these tables. They're all tools that are built into Clay. right? But
Yes.
just so you know.
Thank you.
You know what? That's not entirely true. I just lied. I'm sorry. We'll get
Really?
there in a
Oh,
minute. I forgot. Well, I forgot about Open Router because I do have Open Router in this table. So,
okay.
but have you made any tables with Open Router yet?
I have not yet. No.
Okay. So this table is going to be the ultimate pain in the ass for you because there's like four different API calls in it,
Yeah.
but like it's worth it, right? Because it's all about getting to the end result. Um, so anyway, you can always make choices, right? And do them in small batches. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
Like, decide if you get value because when you pull in the LinkedIn company profile, right, you're gonna also get all this other data,
Mhm.
right? So maybe there's something in here that helps you drill down to your use case. I don't think so, right? Because I don't really see anything that's specific that would help you tell you like, do they have a recruiter or not?
Mhm.
But that's the other factor. Like, how much data am I getting from the click credit? But I think you're probably gonna be better off like just duplicating the staffing one and trying to see if you can identify the employees by the
Okay.
company LinkedIn URL because
Mhm.
what will happen, and you'll have to adjust some of the prompts, right? But what will happen generally is that if it can find the LinkedIn profile
Mhm.
from the URL, so let me explain what I'm saying. So in this research for Mercy,
Okay.
and I go to steps taken, it can clearly find the company LinkedIn profile. I didn't have it till this point.
Okay.
Uh, but you see how it identifies it right here?
Yes.
HTTPS LinkedIn company. So it can find it through ClayJet, right? So what it would come down to is you basically saying like um, in a duplicate prompt, like if I duplicate a staffing company and I just said try to find employee size, feeding it the output of the research, like saying, referencing the research column, this output right here,
Mhm.
and saying, take the LinkedIn profile, identify it, and try to find how many employees it has.
Mhm.
That makes sense. So that would be the like the secret to Clay success is taking other columns that you've run and
Mhm.
injecting them into new research prompts because it already has a lot of the information, so it doesn't have to go out to find it. So it's much cheaper. Let me that clarify that. Like if you
Mhm.
make it smart, then it doesn't have to do as much work, so it costs less and it's cheaper. So like some of the things like this, like is it a recruiting company? How big is it? If you can tell it where to get that information, then and it doesn't have to go out to the web to do it, then it's going to come back pretty quickly and it's going to be cheap and it's going to be fast.
Amazing. Yeah, because I know based off the conversation I had with Adrian, his concentration is on medium-sized businesses. It's not that he's not open to small or large, but that's their concentration at Fulcrum Search Science.
Well, and I think that's where it's incumbent upon you to define the ICP and say, okay,
Exactly.
well, what is a medium-sized business? Is a
Mhm.
medium-sized business like I think is a medium-sized business a company that has 201 to 500 employees, 51 to 200? Sounds like it. I feel like if
Mhm.
you're over 1,000, you're starting to get pretty big, right? That's a huge infrastructure. So that's kind of what you want to look at. So this might be a pretty important parameter for you, right?
Indeed. Yes. And he did. I'll have a few notes after you're done presenting. Sorry for interrupting, but thank you.
Oh no,
Yes.
you're good. Yeah. So even I have a filter in here just so you know. So I can filter down these results. So I can say contains numbers less than 5001 or is empty. So this tells me the companies that I want to target.
Okay.
So I can filter down anything when I get these results.
Hmm.
And then you'll see this in here, but this is the prompt template. It's actually pretty good now. I've
Okay.
improved it to make it a lot more humanistic.
Okay.
It's going to inject the offer and the research and then create the copy. I am using Open Router. So the nice thing is all you'll have to do is replace the API key.
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw what I covered last Thursday or Tuesday, but I talked about in the video, like in the recording, I
Hmm.
tested 6 different models
Okay.
and Sonnet by far produces the best output. Um,
Sonnet
so
3.5.
have you been,
Correct?
Yeah, at least from my perspective, for copy. And
Yep. Yeah.
so on Open Router, have you been into Open Router at all yet?
So I have been to Open Router, and it's funny that you mentioned Sonnet was your better performing email copy AI assistant because that's how I got my meeting. So, but
Okay, so you know
yeah.
then. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I was using GPT 4.0
Okay.
but Sonnet's like,
Oh, it's fantastic.
uh, yeah, I'll show you real quick. I'll back out this table. This is what I was working on right before the call. And
Okay.
I'm really focusing on tweaking the prompt a lot,
Okay.
but I wanted you to see like how good it is.
Okay.
So like read this email.
I know how challenging it can be to maintain a stellar reputation in the home industry service or industry, especially with over 60 years of history behind you. Your recent community outreach on AC maintenance really caught my attention, Marcy. It's clear Frisbees isn't just about fixing problems, but educating customers. Given your commitment to customer satisfaction and proactive, oh my God, I believe our services at Web Launch could be a game changer for Frisbees. We specialize in helping home services like yours not just improve rankings, but significantly increase client acquisition. I'm confident it could achieve comparable results, further cementing. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that just sounds like a very professional, highly
It's
personalized email. Wow.
Yeah, and it's dynamic, right? Like you can see, like it does start off some of the things, but
Hmm.
I got this prompt. I've got it writing with empathy. Like I told it to write lead with empathy. And
Hmm.
then so this is like all I did, the difference in the one I'm going to share with you is like I just changed kind of the approach to be more empathetic.
Okay.
But the point is like it will dynamically single time like be different based off that research, right? Like this one talks about, their 27 years. There's one, I can't remember what it was, one that talked about, I think it's his fifth one.
Hmm. But it
Uh,
helps tremendously with deliverability, if I'm not mistaken, right? Just because
well,
of
it's 100% unique every time, right? So that
exactly.
helps.
Hmm.
And then like this one even speaks to their Yelp rating because it
Yeah.
found that in the research, right? So the goal is to try to be like detailed,
Hmm.
right? But also be humanistic, right? And so like the research part I'm confident on. I'm constantly tweaking like the approach I use as far as what gets people to resonate. Sonnet is just this is a sonnet, exact same thing.
Hmm.
So back to that table,
Yes.
right? With Open Router, what I do is I just go in generally and buy like $50 at a time worth credits
Okay.
because you can see I'm running hundreds of them even right now. I think, or they're running up till they're running right now in the background, and it's a half a cent, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little less per lead. So it's
Hmm.
shaken out like that whole table that I'm losing money as we speak. Yeah, that whole table we're talking about
Yeah.
back here with interviews, it's like it's it's going through a whole bunch of different things.
Oh yeah.
But at
Leading
the
it.
end of the day, it's getting to a point where it's like, you remember where we started? We started with a job posting. And with the job posting, we've gone all the way to getting research about the person, who is the right person to reach out to, then going deep dive into their business and that person,
Hmm.
then creating hyper personalized copy to that person. And so that's what's here. And the only thing you would have to adjust is you want to adjust obviously the offer, and you can play around with the prompt if you want it to sound different. But all the APIs works done. You just have to
Integrate your own.
replace, yeah,
Yeah.
just put your API key here
Oh
instead
yeah.
of mine.
Yep.
Um,
Thank you. I'm very familiar with integrating APIs even into Clay
good,
as well as
good.
automation. Thank you.
That'll make it easier for you.
Hmm.
And then this last one, just so you know,
Hmm.
is all we did is, and this one's really, really cheap.
Hmm.
And this is the one I showed you because all I'm doing is saying like take um, that output from the email copy and turn
Hmm.
it into one sentence that I can use on the VSL.
Hmm.
So basically like summarizes this, but it's different. right? You can tell everyone's completely different
Yeah.
because when you go to Reachly now, like you have this table, you end up with a result, you're going to go to Reachly.
And you're going to map it in as the introduction to the VSL. The one
Yeah,
line.
and I'll show you.
Hmm.
Yeah, you'll map that. So I'll show you like I just ran this table for him, so it's convenient.
Hmm.
Um, take a second to load. But do you see how it's injecting that personalization in the table?
Hmm.
So now, like they're getting there's customization, obviously, first name, first name, but then we're speaking to the actual role in the landing page as well. So it's not just in the email, it's in the landing page. And so
Hmm.
that's why I create that last little section because
Hmm.
just it's like one more step. Like we've essentially creating a landing page for them. It has information that's relevant to them, but then we're actually talking about the role that we're interested in. And you can obviously customize this to be whatever you want, but
Yeah.
like I guess the at the end of the day, what doesn't lie is if you look at I'm doing this for myself and then a couple different clients already. Like
Hmm.
this was his campaign last week. I mean, he we only sent like 3,200 emails and
That's insane.
2,900 of them got clicked. Yeah, I mean, you look at mine, it's the same thing. I've got higher video views because I think recruiting is just harder,
Hmm.
but like that's why I'm booking like 5, 6 calls a day, just because like I'm getting so many of these video views. I mean, you just got to think like from a mathematical perspective,
Right.
like it took me, I think 2,100 to get this many page views. So of the 2,100 emails I sent,
Hmm.
um, 20% of them, I'm doing math in my head, but 20% of them watched the video,
Okay.
right? And then I don't know, we booked 80 to 90 calls out of it, right? So it's like if you get down to the brass tacks of those numbers, though, it's still like um, one per 30, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's impressive.
Now, I'm selling lead generation. I can sell this as my lead magnet. It's a different approach than this, but
Right.
even if that number was like 1 out of 100, I mean, you can do the math, right? If you're sending 30,000 emails, you
Hmm.
know, if you
Still,
get 1 out of 1,000, it's still going to be 30 book calls.
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
It's
why it's worth it, right? It's a pain in the ass to do all this. It's a
yeah.
lot of work, but it's all about getting to the end result of a professional looking landing page that's
Hmm.
personalized, that you shot a video or whoever you decide to shoot the video on, and knowing that you can get it in the inbox and you can
Hmm.
get thousands of people to view it, and by some degree of percentage, people are going to scroll down and click book, right? And that's your then it's game over, right?
Yeah.
Because you already know they're qualified leads because you've done the lead gen properly,
Yeah.
right? So I know that didn't leave you much time to talk, but go for it.
Yeah, no, Josh, this was an excellent breakdown. I feel like I could integrate and manipulate this workflow for different reasons as well. So this was great. The only thing I would say, and you know, please don't take this as me not appreciating what you've broken down because this is an excellent workflow. And thank you so much for sharing it as well. Is one of the main objections for Adrian, for example, he mentioned that with job postings specifically, as the first signal was something that, in his experience, was something that they couldn't leverage super well, specifically because the executive roles that they are trying to fill for companies, they weren't openly posting these on Indeed, LinkedIn. And, if they were, sometimes you mentioned that it would be difficult because these different recruiting firms would be doing it on their behalf, or, they were trying to establish or build a pipeline. And those were great objections to bring up because, again, he's really the one teaching me the scopes of all of this. So, I guess what I'm really trying to say is we start here at the job posting level, right? And from your experience, you could definitely look at specific job posts for specific VP and up roles that are open within the US and Canada. You can set those parameters. But what are other potential intent signals that I could leverage as the starting point? And then, just as you said, throughout this presentation, just break them down, break them down, break them down all the more to create a targeted list.
It's a good question. I mean, it's kind of hard to say from, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind immediately
Okay.
to your point of about them not posting the job is saying monitoring roles that were vacated.
Yeah.
So that would be the only thing I could think of because, you know, what he's saying is that's filled by headhunters, right?
Right.
It sounds like essentially what he's saying, right? Headhunters, they're going to go to headhunters and fill those roles, right? That
Okay.
doesn't mean that the headhunter is successfully doing it well, right? So I think what I would do is be looking at Clay's new job signal,
Okay.
but I just don't know it's going to give you like immediate results, right? You're gonna have to come up with a way to basically look at people who are leaving roles by capturing people who are taking new roles, right? So if I become the CEO of somewhere else, then you would have to go back and look at my previous role to see how long ago I vacated that role. And if it was
Okay.
similar to what you're trying to function, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
Like
it doesn't sound
I
easy.
don't know that I mean I'd have to do it in Clay. I
Okay.
would be highly surprised though that there's not a lot of executive roles. I just shared that table with you real quick, so
Thank you so
you
much.
should have it. But let me see. Let's just do it real quick before I jump on the next call. So create new table. Um, this is what I was talking about: track job changes,
Okay. Yeah.
where you can look and see people, but you basically have to build tables of uh, people who uh, CEO. Uh,
Yeah, but for your most optimized method of booking calls, even for an executive search firm like Fulcrum Search Science, it would be leveraging um like Google Job Scrape or Google Job Scraper as
Indeed, Google and LinkedIn. Yeah. I
okay.
mean, like, this is obviously not the United States. This is just all over the world. But I mean, if all I did was type in CEO and vice president jobs, there's 22,000 on LinkedIn.
Mhm. Like that
And
are
that's
currently
that's just that's just LinkedIn, right?
oh, I'm sorry, that are currently looking for those positions?
No, that are just open jobs. So I guess I'm just trying to say, like, I don't know that I subscribe to the theory
That doesn't
that
work.
these kind of jobs aren't posted everywhere.
Thank you so much, Josh. Okay. I mean, it never hurts to challenge his view. Um, because
Well,
ultimately,
but do you need to challenge this view, or is it your job just to book a meetings, right? So that's
well,
where I would be like, I would use every data source I could, Diego, like Indeed, Google, even asking Chat GPT, like doing some searches to see how many jobs are out there,
yeah,
right? And if you don't feel like you can find enough that way, then kind of try to invent new sources. But I would just say like I've done enough Indeed searches. One of my clients does executive recruiting. I don't feel like there's not enough jobs out there.
amazing. Okay. Alrighty. Then in that case, that's fantastic, Josh. Thank you. I know it's also 7 o'clock. I do have some follow-up questions, but I'm not going to ask them just out of respect for your next meeting. So if I have your permission, could I just send you a couple of texts through
Of course,
WhatsApp and then, okay, awesome. But I couldn't tell you enough how thankful I am for this because, yeah, it just sharing that table alone is going to cut down my learning curve tremendously. And I guess my next goal really is just to provide them the confidence that it can be done. Um, and yeah, so we'll go from there. But thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate it.
you're welcome, and we'll talk soon.
We will. Alrighty. Take care.
See you.